guess we could call the meeting to order.
Yeah.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Well, I guess we'll go into, somebody want to make a motion to go into closed session?
Oh,
We can do the agenda.
We should approve the agenda first.
Do the agenda first?
Can I make a motion to approve the agenda?
I second.
Motion. Second to approve the agenda. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Want to do the minutes right away too?
Might as well. A few minutes.
Somebody want to make a motion to do the board minutes for September 13th?
So moved.
I'll second it.
Motion and a second to accept the minutes. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Work group session minutes from September 20th. There wasn't much there, was there?
No,
I'll
I'll
make-
move for it.
I'll second it.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion carried. Public comment, we'll wait with.
Don't look like anybody's up there.
So,
Make a motion, to go into closed session in pursuit of 13D 105 for attorney-client privilege to consider ASME grievance.
Second.
Motion and second to go into closed session. Any more discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Closed session.
The board met in closed session pursuant to 13D05 subdivision 1 attorney-client privilege to consider the pending grievance and mediation with a consensus, general consensus just to move forward with discussions with the union.
Can you repeat what you just said? I'm sorry.
General consensus to move forward, continue discussions with the union regarding the pending
Okay,
grievance and mediations.
okay, thanks.
Time was 9:43. We came on.
I made the motion and
Second.
Bob seconded.
Okay. All right, move on to public comment. Public comment? Look like it. Okay, appointments, we got the first one done. 9:30, Craig Milkirk. Who's up next?
Good morning, commissioners. Craig Milford is here from Collaborative Design along with
Joanna Harris.
Joanna Harris. And to give the board, have a discussion with the board, give the board an overview of the pending space utilization study, as well as answer any questions you might have regarding our input on the RFP for the roof.
Right.
Is that correct? So I'll just turn it over to.
Can we start with the utilization study?
Morning, thanks for
Morning.
having us.
Yep, good morning.
Do you have a good trip down?
Yes. It's a beautiful drive. I actually came from Mankato, so I was coming across southern Minnesota. but
Let's see here. Full screen.
Oops. This is not what I wanted to open. I'm sorry. Back to the right one here. There it is. Okay. So thank you again. As Joanna said, we're happy to be here and talk to you about this pending project and what it might mean to you. So I'll turn it over to Joanna. Let her describe what this project is all about and what we propose to help you with.
Like I said, good morning. I will talk a little bit through our process too, but really if anyone has any questions or anything else you would like us to talk about or address, please just feel free to ask and go ahead. So the purpose of the project, which is the most important thing, is just as we've went through, obviously, not only COVID, but over time, just the needs of the public, along with the way that you service the public, obviously have been changing. The way people are working is changing. So this study will really first look at to understand the needs. And one of our first steps that we do, we'll get into steps in the next slide, but really what's important is we meet with you and we really set some guiding principles and goals for the project. And that can also, we can take direction also from some of the main user groups in that, but we really come to you and gather that information with you to define what that overall need is and the purpose and the goals, as I said. So some of the other things consolidate the way that Houston County delivers the services to the public, obviously optimizing the use of the county-owned buildings, really looking at efficiency and that utilization. What are the best adjacencies of space? What types of functions are happening the same for each department and could overlap? Where can we save space? Where do spaces need to grow? Where are people adding staff? We look at numbers. So it takes in a lot of things here, not just physical space itself. And then also if looking at one of the overall goals might be bringing everything to this one central location here. This just quickly identifies some of the major steps of our process. As I noted, developing those goals in the kickoff meeting and the guiding principles. And then after that, it really gets into the gathering of data and collecting all that information, meeting with each individual county department that provides services and the departments that need to be on this campus. So we gather that data and then we assess it. And at certain steps, we bring all that information back to you. So again, you can give input. Then once we have the data, we start to develop options. And that's the base, not only the base drawings of what's existing, but then getting into options for possible consolidation, migration plans of moving departments around. There can be several scenarios that we look at there. So, and then we, again, collectively come up with what is the best option to proceed with. Sometimes or all the time, usually cost is also a factor. So then we do cost estimates. There may be an A and a B, and you weigh which one, the cost of both. And then all of this information goes into a final report that we submit to you. So that was a very quick overview, but and I can get more detailed if anybody, again, has questions. But one thing I think that this quickly here, just on this slide, just shows you various tools that we'll use throughout the process. In the upper right-hand corner where you see kind of you want to point that out, Craig, where it's the colored rectangles and squares. That's taking each department and identifying the uses within that department or space needs, particularly within each of the departments. These are examples from other projects. And then as you go counterclockwise down and around, we're just showing some colored block planning there. We'll not only have a colored block plan for the whole county campus, but then also individual ones for each floor of each building. And then we show in the upper left-hand corner, just some renderings. And sometimes even though this is a space utilization project, we can show, it's easier to visualize things sometimes 3D. So if there's a very simple way to do a 3D view of things to show you how something might be consolidated, we might potentially do something like that even in a report of the project of this size as well, so. And then just one of the things I just wanted to say is really one of our overall goals is really to meet your county needs and to really make the best use of what you have. So the county buildings that you already are using, you're already delivering the services to the public, but just, how can that be enhanced? And really, what is the best use of space? And we can talk about further in depth of project examples. We did a similar project a few years ago for Todd County, where we consolidated some of their departments, and we did end up using one of their historic buildings of their courthouse as well. But I don't know how much information you guys
It's
want.
interesting that it was almost the exact same project. They had services all over town, and they had a newer government center, but they had an empty courthouse. And they wanted to consolidate all their services kind of in one central location. And so we used the process that Joanna just explained and got them to a plan where they could move all of the other services that were outside of the city into the old historic courthouse and saved them enough money so that they could pay for the project. So.
Any questions or anything else you'd like us to specifically address about the space utilization?
So when you do this project, you talk to us, but you talk to the department heads. I mean, they're the ones that kind of what they need, or
Right.
what they think they need.
Correct.
What they think they need versus what they actually need are maybe two different things. So, when
What they
you're looking
want
at-
versus.
Yeah. And what you want. versus
Wants
what you
versus
need.
desires. Yeah.
But when you put this all together, do you anticipate future needs as well?
Yes, that's a huge part of it, is the future, planning for the future and flexibility into the future so you can adapt as needed. So sometimes the future isn't always growth. Sometimes the future foresees, they're going to be taking all their paper files and making them digital, and they don't need the big high density storage units, and those take up a lot of space. So sometimes the future is actually minimizing also. So yes, we analyze all of that. And what I always like to tell everybody when I start, we call it an interview process when we meet with the departments, and we'll do that virtually to save on cost and time as well. But is that you can say anything you want. You can describe your needs and your wants. We will listen to all the information, but then that's our job to take it back and analyze it and really determine with your team as well, what is like a want versus a need. So.
And those wants and needs always have to be balanced with dollars.
Yes.
And that's what we come back to you folks for direction, is we'll present you options and look for directions on where the best value is. Do you want to spend the money for option A or option B? And
you apparently come back with preliminary ideas and then tweak them and then we
Exactly.
come back again with a finalized product at the end.
right,
Yes.
it'll be an iterative process. So we'll come back at certain points during the project to communicate back to you where we're at and which way we should be heading.
I realize this might be a tough question. Do you have an approximate timeline as to when you're starting and possible completion?
We can start whenever you tell us to start. We've estimated it that the whole process will take about 20 weeks.
Have you had any preliminary visions described to you?
Were there?
Yeah.
Mainly to try to get the people out of the building out on the highway and bring them to this campus, potentially using the old jail.
Who shared that with you?
Tess.
We wanted to do jail instead of the old jail, correct? Well, the new jail is one of our properties. Yeah. Whether or not it's functional or not is a question.
So, I mean, that's what was shared with us, but that's,
Not the final product yet. so.
no, it's whatever you want us to look at.
But with that information, that's probably the avenue you're looking at going to, or?
That was the basis for our proposal, yes.
But you still look at everything that we have. Basis of your proposal, you get to looking at what we actually have is
Mhm.
going to change your outlook on what we end up. with.
Exactly. Yeah, that was just kind of a bit, like you said, it was a vision, but
Right.
not necessarily the direction.
Right.
Mhm. I think that, obviously those of you within the county and working, seeing how people maybe at work and the services are offered without, throughout some of the buildings, you can see right away and identify there's inefficiencies maybe, or things that where spaces aren't being fully used. Or because things are more separated and there are people that aren't within this central campus here. So that's kind of how I took the direction we've been given is that. But we definitely come into it with no preconceived notions. It's analyze everything. And then, like we said, bring it back to you after we collect the data. And then,
That's why you study. what
yes,
we have.
Exactly. So you guys did some of the work for our, applying for a historical grant.
Yes,
Do you use some of that information?
I'm sure we will,
Mhm.
right? Because we've already looked at some of these departments and understand, and we've got a little bit of a head start on understanding how the county functions.
I was always under the impression that this was just a look at the study, the space that we're using now and how we best can use it efficiently. But not really create more space. And, another factor, I don't know if I'm sure you guys have seen this in other counties about the work from home
Mhm.
aspect of it.
Mhm.
Where actually you could get by with less space.
Mhm.
I assume that'd be taken into
Yeah.
account.
So that's, if there's, if you can say, there's less space being used, then this space is already allocated for this department. This is what they're using now. But we don't feel like that function is going to come back in person. It's going to be mostly work at home. Then that current space could either be downsized or it could be allocated to a different department that needs the actual physical space. There can also be shared spaces too between some of those functions. So if someone does need to be on campus, that they always have a space that they can touch down or have an office that they could use. So there's lots of things we can look at for that.
It's not only, I would anticipate some of your services are even going online versus having people come in to the courthouse or a certain building. So that might influence how people work.
But we also have to remember, not everybody is technical in their background, there's still some
Right.
old fuddy duddies like me that like paper and crayon.
I still like paper.
So, but I guess the department heads and the staff within, you talk to more than just the department head. You may want to talk to some of the workers because they have a different point of, or different perspective as far as what's needed. And because they're the ones that are doing the daily work in some cases, and so on. That's kind of how it works.
Definitely. That's part of the reason why the timeline is maybe a little bit longer extended than you think, because sometimes, and I think because if setting up the meetings virtually will help with that, but just to do all those meetings and collect that information takes a while, because we need to work on the time frame that people have available too. to meet with us, so.
Any more questions? Thank you very much.
Thank you much.
Thank you.
With the roof now?
Yes.
This is part one, now we go to part two.
Yeah.
So you'll be meeting with us as a board, or you want a committee, or?
That's a great question. We can do it however works best for you. I would suggest there are some meetings with the full commissioners group as a board. But if you'd like to set up a committee, that also works well too for intermittent communication.
Well, I'm fine with the full board, that's fine. I was just asking if that's been discussed too.
Okay, the next project we were asked to talk about was the replacement of the roof on the courthouse. And I put together some photos. I don't know, do you have, so far we've put together construction documents that are ready to go out to bid. Have you seen them, or do you have questions, or what would you like me to talk to you about?
First, are we
The
looking
need?
at all the building or just the pitched roof?
Okay, just the pitched roof. It's the shingle roof that we're replacing. What you see in the black EPDM roofs on the top,
Yeah.
the flat roofs, those have already been replaced, I think 3 or 4 years ago. But we're looking at replacing the shingle roofs.
You look at that with regard to the shingle roof. And when you look at the, what was the bell tower, I guess. Are we doing any repair work around the? What is it?
Soffits.
The soffits and the fascia. Tell you what, why don't I just take a quick run and through, and I'll show you the issues. And then I'll show you what I've got in the construction documents, and you can tell me if you want me to modify anything or not. So this is just an overview of the courthouse building, so you can see kind of the complexity of the roof, especially the tower. In this photo, you can see this kind of illustrates why we're doing it. There's a lot of missing shingles in certain areas of the building here. More missing shingles up at the top.
Pigeons are trying to fill them in.
Yeah. Pigeons are holding it all together. Okay, so some of the shingles have been replaced, as you can see in this area. So there's been ongoing maintenance, but you know, there's an issue with all these shingles. More broken and missing ones. So it's kind of that's kind of the theme of why we're even looking at replacing these shingles. The other issue I want to bring up, and I see this in a lot of locations, is that the shingles are being held on with staples. And that's really not a real secure way to hold these shingles on. I think and it's probably why we're losing quite a few of them is in high winds, they're just peeling off. Or it may have also been that they were coming off and somebody just went up there with a staple gun just to hold them on a little bit better. That could be too. This illustrates somewhat of the complexity. The next couple of photos show the complexity of the roof. I mean, in plan, everything, it looks kind of simple, but it's a very steep roof, and access is going to be the challenge for the roofers. And that's, of course, when you talk about complexity and access, it also equates to driving up the cost.
So that black stuff on the side there, is that mold or what is that stuff?
Yeah, I don't think it's mold. I think it's just pollutants from the air. It's just dirt, and it can be cleaned off. And it would certainly, we talked about that a few years back too, when we were looking at getting a historic grant for masonry repair to clean that. It would certainly brighten up the building if you did.
You're referring to the stone?
The stone, right?
different issue.
That- Yeah, we're not gonna,
Not this
Address,
project,
no.
but
Someday.
that actually gives it character.
that's what some people say. It's called character. I included this photo to show, to start showing some of the decorative metal elements up on the roof as well. Now, we're not, to be respectful of your budget, we're not gonna go in there and take all that metal off and try to replace it. What I've got in the spec is if there's any smaller holes, we're gonna have them fabricate some new sheet metal and cover up the holes, and then repaint it and try to save what we have. Overall, most of it's in good shape. Over along that edge there, that again, it looks like it's tacked in or stapled in. That's gonna have to be detached so we can get new shingles underneath to get a proper roofing project. This shows the detail up at the top where that EPDM is. We're gonna end up taking that flashing off to install the new shingles and then reattach new sheathing that's tucked under the EPDM again to get a proper seal on it. This again is showing some of that decorative metal, and it's, we're not treating this like a historic preservation project or restoration, but it would also be a shame to lose the character of the building. So we're gonna try to maintain it and save what we can as economically as we can. And most of that, like I said, is just repair and repainting. You can see most of these pieces are still in pretty good shape, especially considering their age, over 100 years. There are built-in copper gutters there, and from what I could tell, they still appear to be in good shape too, so we're not replacing those gutters as part of this project. Okay, so getting to some of your questions about that wood fascia, around the lower part of the roof, from what I can tell, is in pretty good shape yet. I've asked for a unit price from the contractors to, if they have to replace certain pieces of trim, they will have a unit price and will only pay for what they actually do. But for the most part, we're gonna just clean that, scrape it, and paint it. Chimney's still in good shape, so we're not gonna touch that other than new flashing to tie it into the new roof. Then the tower, you can see that, again, that's an access issue. Contractor's gonna have to either scaffold it or get some very large lifts to work from. But again, those metal pieces, other than looks like they've been beat up a little, maybe from hail or something. Excuse me.
That very top there, that looks like it's been
Looks like it's been beat up.
smashed down or something.
I can't explain that.
It should be a ball there, right? Or either that or it's gone, yeah.
I don't know what was up there. Maybe
But
look at
that's
some
those-
historic
that's metal,
photos.
right?
That's metal. No. And a lot of old Christmas lights up there.
Oh, really?
That's what those wires are.
They can come down with the project.
Well, yeah, we'll take those down.
Don't you remember
Thank
back
you.
a number of years ago, the city had a big deal about putting lights
Yeah, I
on all
know,
the buildings?
yes.
The courthouse had them all over the place.
See, another,
That's what's missing. You see it on top of these, what's missing in that last photo, I'll bet is that.
a little egg or whatever it was up on top. Yeah.
Football or elongated ball. Anyway, sorry.
Okay, so now you can see this trim and fascia and soffits up on the tower is in much worse condition. You can see on both the left and right side there, the trim is just falling off. Got a close-up view of some of that wood that's just falling off and it's rotten. So that's going to be replaced. The wood that I'm having replaced, that I'm replacing this with, or what I've specified is an engineered wood product, which will last much longer than wood will. It's the LP Smart Siding product, if you're familiar with that. And it'll be virtually a maintenance-free product.
Just curious, if this was an historical project, could you use that stuff?
Yes,
You can't.
yes. Especially when it's up on top like this, because sometimes I've gotten some pushback if you try to use the siding to where you're up close and personal with it, and it doesn't necessarily look exactly the same. But from the ground, nobody's going to be able to tell the difference up there. I'll argue that to the end with the historic people, because you have to make some compromises somewhere along the line. I mean, we could put some old pine boards up there and paint them, but you're going to be up there again in 8 years repainting them again. And realistically, you probably aren't going to be, and it's going to end up like this. So why would anybody do that? There are better products to use, better materials. And that's part of the history of the building. We can still maintain the character and the appearance of the building and use better products. Same with the shingles, honestly. We found out through historic research that this building originally had wood shakes on it. Now, the historic people might argue that you should put that back on it, but obviously they're not paying for it. So we can put a nice, good, heavy-duty architectural shingle on here that's from the ground is going to be as attractive as cedar shingles will be. And it'll look better than what's there now.
What's the considered life on that type of machine? A 20-year, a 30-year,
It's a 50-year.
50?
So this is what you just meant a commercial shingle, or?
Yeah, it's a heavy-duty commercial architectural shingle.
It sounds expensive.
Just all of the words. The word 50 years is a long time.
It's not cheap, but there's good value to it. And that's, I guess, what I'd say. I mean, you could go out and buy a less expensive shingle, but a lot of the cost, probably more than half of the cost of this is labor.
Yeah, to get there. To get up
Right.
there.
And so if you're going to spend all that money on labor, in my opinion, and it's not my money I'm spending, it's yours. So I would respect what you want to do, but you have to think about what's the best value. And I guess my recommendation would be is if you can afford it, you're better off going with the best material you can. Right. I mean, you're going to own this building forever, right? So. Just more of the same wood details that we're going to end up repainting. There used to be louvers in this location. And at some point they were taken out and put this masonite siding in. And we're recommending that we'll just go back with a similar type of an appearance, but it'll be that LP Smart siding instead of this. Still kind of imitating the louvers, but not really replacing louvers.
Not functional.
Right.
Keeps pigeons out.
Exactly. So these are the drawings, the drawing set that I've got developed right now. Do this. It's not playing right. Well, I won't try it. Anyway, the drawing set, the description of work, if I could zoom in, would show you all the, I have a narrative there of what all of the work items are and exactly what I'm asking the contractors to do. We're showing a plan mainly for dimensions, just a plan of the building so that they can understand the size of the project that they're working on. And then I have a roof plan that shows all of the work items and all of the areas of roof replacement, the areas that have the hatch pattern on it, or areas that are not in the scope of the project. But we're identifying all the flashings and the shingles and where all the metal roof roofing decorative roof elements are. And then same with the elevations. We've got drawings that show, and I mean, all of these just use keynotes. So I'm pointing with a number 5 that might say replace roof shingles. And then we have, of course, all the details that show them exactly how to put the flashings in the way I want to make sure that we get a watertight project. But we're also putting a new roof hatch up. I don't have a photo of that in here, but right now you climb up a ladder through the attic of the courthouse, and there's just a wooden box basically sitting on top that's kind of clamped down. So I'm proposing that we actually put in a secure roof hatch. And then for the contractor's benefit, I also show
Yeah,
many of
roof
the same
hatch is that-
photos.
I'm sorry. Roof
Oh,
hatch
there it
that
is.
Lower
There you
left.
go. Right. So that's what we got for documents. Like I said, it's ready to go out for bids. I've been talking with, well, I talked with one commercial roofer who we just finished a project with this past summer with the same type of shingles, to ask him what the availability is for these, because availability can vary all over the board. And interestingly, he said it all comes down to what color you want. So that's, if we go ahead with this project, that's gonna be my first question, is what color shingles do we put up here? And if you want a real unusual colors or so, or even a real common one, we may not be able to get them right away. That being said, it's the end of September now, and putting this out to bid, I'm not sure what your process is by the time we get our bids back, might be mid-October, and you make a decision, we get contracts. Honestly, we're getting to a point where it might be not real practical to do a shingle roof this time of year. However, it's probably a good time to bid it for spring work. And we could get a contractor on board and choose a color of shingles and get them ordered and have them ready to go in April and get this thing done right away.
What we have there is kind of a multicolored red. Is that, am I assuming that correctly?
Yeah.
Very
More
multicolored
brown,
though.
Gray.
There's green in there too.
It does not match the original.
Right, and
It
remember,
wasn't a slate roof before, right?
Original.
no, it was not
shade.
slate, it was wood.
It was wood.
And it was actually, the original, that one article that we saw in the old newspaper said that they were dipping, the workers were dipping the shingles in paint. So,
What color paint?
Yeah, did it say the color?
Could have been multicolored paint.
probably not, probably something
Preservative.
pretty neutral, I would bet. Well, it's nice that we have an interior designer with us,
Well,
but we could
I usually don't pick out the colors at my place. But I was just thinking of multi-brown or something would be good.
I like the
Sandstones.
darker contrast. I like the darker color of this compared to the stone.
Offsets for the stone.
Multi-gray probably too, yeah. I don't know.
So we could get some color samples and we can,
Yep.
we can even Photoshop some onto an image to show you.
This color costs this much, this color costs this.
The colors won't cost anymore.
They don't cost any different.
It'll just be,
The lead time.
just to be
Availability.
availability.
So 2 questions. When we get prices that are acceptable, how long does this project take roughly?
I would say you would have contractors on the building from somewhere between 4 and 6 weeks.
On the building, depending on what they're using, how much of the parking lot are we gonna lose the use of from their staging and whatnot?
I don't think a lot. We'll designate an area that they can have to store materials.
Using lifts and whatnot, those are gonna be pretty good sized units that are gonna take some room.
Right. So the contractor would, so around the perimeter of the building, they will. I would anticipate that they're gonna set some scaffolding up so that they can work on the perimeter of the building and be safe up on the roof. If they set up scaffolding, then they don't have to have tie-offs and it's easier for them to work. I would anticipate that, but I don't dictate that to them. It's more of a means and methods. But that's what I would anticipate. And they will still have to have some type of a telehandler that'll get the material up onto the roof and then they'll move it around from there.
I guess the only thing I'd ask is that we specify that the west door, the handicap access always remains open. So that
Elevator.
the elevators and the handicap access.
That specifically is not in my documents right now, but I'll put it in. I do have notes in there that they have to maintain the access to the building. But the building is still going to be in use. They have to maintain access. So at any entrance that they're working over the top, they'll have to provide a scaffolded, kind of a tunnel protection so that the public is always safe coming in and out of the building.
So when you put this together, do you have a proposed cost or an estimated cost? Since you've done other projects similarly to this.
I've estimated that, based on the project that we just finished this past summer, probably a little less, it was bigger, but it was and a little less complex than this. But comparing those costs, I've estimated this to be for the shingles and some of the normal metal work. I would estimate this to be around $75,000. And then some of that extra wood trim work might be another 10 to 20,000.
I thought it was gonna be.
Me too.
Yeah, so I was.
What, let's not get too excited.
Because the bids aren't in yet, and
It is better than
Um,
I'm
Is it still
honestly,
volatile, the market?
it is. That's my best guess estimate, and I hesitate doing it because prices are just all over the boards with everything
Right.
these days. You know that.
Did you ever consider instead of shingles, tin? Or is that not recommended on this type of roof?
To do like a standing seam metal roof. I did not.
I should say metal, not tin.
Yeah, I know what you mean, but. I did not. Mainly because of the historic character of the building. I don't think it would,
I had the same question in my mind.
Right.
But this isn't historic,
right?
this isn't a historic contract, so I'm just thinking durability and longevity with tin versus shingle, but I mean, I may be wrong here because we all have different tastes, but you know, a tin roof would look, wouldn't that look fairly decent on this building or not?
I think it would, I think the
Metal
appearance
roof.
could be fine. It just wouldn't look historic. It wouldn't necessarily fit the historic character of the building.
Where did the cost compare?
Um,
Metal,
It would probably be more money. Maybe, maybe not.
It probably would be.
Durability is there, but my feeling would take away from
yeah.
the historic or look.
Right.
I had, that was one of my thoughts when I first read this. It looks like a machine shop, I guess.
Mhm.
It's durable. Just,
Well, you know, there's different types of metal roofing too. It can look like shakes, it can look, you know,
but those get
I
expensive.
can't.
right,
Price.
right.
Oh, yeah. There you go.
What's this?
Commissioners, would it be, in light of the discussion you're having regarding the shingles, would you be interested in the RFP having alternate bids, one for a metal shingle, if you will, or some type of metal roof versus the composite? Is that something, Craig, that could be done, is to have them bid out both costs?
Yeah, we could come up with a different, an alternate material and bid it as an alternate. And then you have the option. And you know, then you can make a more informed decision.
I'd be fine with that.
Yeah,
I was just showing, goes back to that Todd County courthouse that we did. You can't really tell, but that roof is a metal shingle roof. It's a really great product. I don't think they make it anymore, but I'll find out.
Of course they don't.
But that was a 50-year too, though, wasn't it?
Oh, at least.
Oh, more than that.
They had such a problem with wind blowing the shingles off this building, but those, they're metal shingles, but they have a granule on it. They kind of look kind of like an asphalt shingle. They come in big sheets and they nail on, the labor was very economical, and it's a great looking roof. I'll see if I
The
can
big
find out.
difference between their courthouse and our courthouse is we got an awful lot of valleys.
Mhm.
Yeah, a lot of
Right.
cutting.
Very
There's a lot of
Well, there's a few valleys.
There's some
there,
valleys
too.
here too,
There's
but
some
not as
valleys.
much as what you got.
Well, ours is steep, you know,
Right.
and with,
Just get some numbers. and-
I'll find another product that I can show you guys.
Sounds good. Just an alternate.
Good. Any other questions?
Can you repeat your name?
Everybody else got it?
Can you repeat your name?
Sure, Joanna Harris. It's JOHO.
Thank you very much.
Thank you too.
thank you.
Very interesting.
Safe
I just
probably
want
to hear from you.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you again.
Thank you.
Thank you. Moving along. Consent agenda, I guess we haven't got too much there. I guess we have to do much for a motion there.
That's right.
We'll go into action items, I guess. I didn't forget anything, did I?
Donna is there.
Yes, Commissioners, I just wanted to propose to you to approve the resolution to allow myself to open a checking account at the Rushford State Bank in Houston. They actually approached me when I was down there one day for some personal business and asked if I would like to open up that checking account so that the taxpayers are able to make their tax payments at the Rushford State Bank. As most, we had a lot of business with that when the Bremer Bank was in Houston. So we've got all the paperwork filled out and now I just need approval from the commission, from you as a board to have me open that account. It's only for tax payments. And they will collect the taxes for us and mail all the, or I usually pick it up, all of the tickets that are presented to the bank and the payments after the tax season is over with.
I think that's a good idea. I'll make a motion to approve resolution 2249 for Rushford State Bank for tax purposes.
Second.
Okay, there's been a motion and a second. 22-49 to allow Donna to sign. Any more discussion?
So Donna, this is just like a continuation, what they used to do at Bremer, correct?
Correct. Yeah. Mhm.
Discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. To consider approving Houston Hoka, the present River Trail Extension Memorandum of Agreement to jointly cooperate and resolution number 22-50, County of Houston Joint Cooperation for Recreational Trail Development in the present. Community Development Director Larry Kirch will be meeting to discuss it. Allison.
Okay,
And
so
Larry.
we'll have Larry come up front for just a minute. I think a lot of you met Larry last week on the bike tour. But this bus, yes, bus tour, not bike tour.
You know, that's a better idea. We
This
could've done
is, this is for the continuation of the bike and pedestrian trail. Larry will say a little bit more about this, but we've been working on this agreement since March. All of the cities have now approved it. Larry from the city of La Crescent is here. He is taking the lead on this. He's doing a wonderful job and I'm kind of assisting him. And as you'll see on the next item, each entity is designating 2 committee members on behalf of that entity. But Larry, I'll let you say a little bit about it.
Well, I think this started many, many moons ago, probably 30 years ago, the idea of trying to connect the cities over to the Mississippi River. Most recently, the county attorney and the city attorney, who's also the city attorney for Hoka, hammered out this agreement. I think it's in much better shape than the original thing we started with. But I think it gives everybody a seat at the table, citizen-led, which I think is important. I mean, I'll be there to help guide them, organize meetings, kind of steer them hopefully in the right direction. But I think it has to be community-based, has to be citizen-led, and that's really kind of the spirit of this. And it's exciting to see that cooperation can still exist in local government and that communities can work together for kind of the greater region. So I appreciate the county's role in this, and I'll work closely with Allison. And then we'll also work with Michelle and Lindsay in Houston and Hoka to, make sure the residents are involved. We want to move these meetings around, so we'll have an 8-member citizen committee, but we will make sure that we move these meetings around so everybody can kind of get their input. We've had I think we have one guiding principle that we started with at the very beginning. This will all be, cooperative approaches with property owners. We're not going to force anything on anybody, and we'll have to work with those, that environment, those constraints. We have DNR lands, we have Fish and Wildlife lands, Minnesota DOT, we have railroad. It's not, if it was easy, it'd probably be done already. So I really appreciate the county's involvement. I can answer any questions, but I really appreciate, the work that Sam and Allison did on this so far.
Is this a follow-up of the meeting Dewey and I had with the attorneys and the
Yes.
city? Okay.
This also helps us with grant applications. This is part of the plan that we've talked about over time. Help us get grants. funding
maybe
perhaps.
some state funding.
Yeah, it
correct?
is good to show that we're working together between multiple entities.
So we have to come back if we're gonna create bylaws, we have to come back when we create a trail plan. We might have alternatives A, B, and C, but it's really to line up for future funding. And perhaps the role of the committee is really just to work with property owners, whoever that may be, public, private, to secure purchase options or maybe easements, so that then we could go to the state legislature or the DNR for funding to acquire easements right away, whatever that may be.
So you have
And
smart people involved.
Well, I know
Smart
you're not-
trails.
I know you're not talking about me, so.
Other than
Smart
doing
trails.
that.
Smart trails.
Yeah, we haven't had any, we've had some initial meetings really just to talk about the agreement, but we haven't had any formal meetings until, you know, this gets going. So we'll have to involve the public. All the meetings will be publicly noticed. They'll be posted, you know, by the clerks at each community in the county so that people know when the meetings are. But we've purposely not had any meetings with anybody other than kind of staff until we get it going, because really we need some organizational meetings at first with the 8 citizens who've been appointed, kind of under their guidance, under their leadership is really how this thing's going to roll forward. So we really have to create kind of a work plan of how the work's going to get done. So that's really the next phase. So I think we want to be talking to folks, like the most recent trail really is from Preston to Harmony. How did they get it done? We want to be making sure we talk to the Bluff community towns and Root River Trail group. I think it's called the Root River Trail Communities. And so we want to be working with them. I just met with the gentleman this morning. They're trying to get a trail from Nelson down to Winona on that side. So they have part of it done in Winona, if you know the Great River Flyway Trail. They're trying to connect that to the Great River Trail and really on the other side of Wabasha. So there's many communities working on this, both sides of the river throughout the country that it's a feasibility study. This, I don't know that, we have the plan from the DNR from 2011. I don't know, I hope we don't spend the next 5 years or something doing another study, but we'll do what it takes to try to move the project forward.
And to
We'll meet with
answer,
whoever interested parties want to be involved.
and to answer your question, SMART will be a group that we will reach out to eventually.
Funding and grants, and having regional or the area cooperation. The memorandum of understanding. What's the commitment to the county on that versus a joint powers type situation?
So
Well, I think it's just all in how it's named. There is reference to the joint powers agreement language in here, but it's not called a joint powers agreement. So I think it is just, let's all work together and see how we can advance this.
And the memo of agreement was recommended by Attorney Yon because for liability purposes, he thought that was best. So if you have any,
To call it a joint
Further-
cooperation.
no, it's an MOA. We are not to call it,
Joint.
To jointly cooperate.
yes, but it's not, I was told to call it an MOA. Yeah, to jointly cooperate. But he was very specific on the language.
So you said you're gonna have 8 citizens or 8 people on there. We're appointing 2 as a county.
Each
So-
entity is appointing two.
So, okay, like. the
Hoka has
city-
appointed two, Houston, well, Hoka I don't think has
No,
appointed them yet.
Hoka has not appointed yet, but
But
they have
Houston
approved the
has.
agreement. Houston and the Crescent have appointed their citizen members.
Who's in Houston? Can't you say?
Hein,
Hein Bloom, and he's an engineer with Meat Hunt. I can't think of his name.
can't think of his
Came
name
to that
either.
one meeting.
Yeah,
Well, those are people that the city.
The
each
city
entity
each
wants, so,
chose,
I mean,
yes.
We have no
that's-
control over that.
That's fine.
Yeah.
No, I was just curious.
Across has Larry Stryker, who's the chair of our Economic Development Committee, and former mayor Dick Weiser,
The Crescent has.
the Crescent, yeah. And I think Houston hasn't, I mean, Hoka hasn't approved theirs yet.
if it's a memo of agreement, to get the ball rolling and if it'll assist us in the future of building, completing this task, I move to approve the resolution.
I'll second it.
Okay, we've had a motion and approved to accept this agreement between all these cooperatives, Houston, the Crescent, Hoka, Houston County. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. Thank you. Number 3, consider designated Joe Tessing and Benjamin Horn as the committee members on behalf of the Houston County for development of the connecting trail plan for the River Trail extension. Alice.
So these are the two individuals that the EDA board is recommending be designated to this committee.
I make a motion we appoint Joe Tesson and Benjamin Horn as committee members. on
Second.
behalf of the county.
Can I ask a question before we vote?
Yes, you can.
So with these two people appointing and the board, or the overall committee gets together, who's gonna report back to the town? You're gonna take care of that? Okay.
I'll come to any meeting you think.
I'll let you know when the meetings are, because if two commissioners would like to come to the meetings, that would be just fine. You wouldn't actually be voting, but if you want to come to observe.
Well, you're on the smart Trails
Um,
committee, right?
But I will be also plan to be at all the meetings and will be working alongside Larry, so.
You're publishing it, so we'll know when the meetings are.
Sure.
Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you, Larry.
Was it worth the wait?
Thanks, Larry.
Yes, it was. Got to learn about the roof. I see some shingles outside on the ground. Timing is great.
Take care, Mr. Lee.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Number 4, consider adopting a resolution setting the 2023 proposed levy. And that's Carol.
Right, so are there questions about the adjustments that were sent out or any questions on the revised?
Well, you guys did talk, I have the error on the ARPA.
Yeah, and I'll put that together and get it sent out to you and maybe we can meet on it, but today I have audit
So, but I mean,
some things that I have to.
I took the 2022 and subtracted it instead of leaving it in there, so I added an extra 500,000. So
Right.
you've got a plan to keep ARPA with some money left in it.
Yeah, and that'll be up to the board to look at through what has been proposed. I went through the board minutes and, kind of listed everything out that was approved, but some of it hasn't been done. So, we can make adjustments there to make sure that we, carry some money forward. We can look at the fund balance in that capital improvements that's been designated. Throughout the years, there's quite a balance in there, close to $1 million that could be used for some of these items rather than using ARPA funding.
Right.
So that's where we anticipated the roof money coming from.
Right, the roof will be paid from there.
So we got $1 million.
But we looked at, the historic courthouse, the $60,000 for the improvements. We had moved that to ARPA. It really doesn't probably make sense to use the ARPA funding then, to use that from the capital improvements money that we have. Even, talking about technology upgrades, that's something that could come out of there.
But we have been talking about using ARPA for that.
Some of that.
Right, we have, but if we don't have ARPA
Yeah,
and,
yeah.
or we want to keep ARPA, then it certainly could come out of there. To me, that seems like a better place than,
We don't have to spend the ARPA, so it's only 5.
we have until 2026 to actually spend it, 2024 to commit it.
Right.
So the budget. Yeah, right now.
So the 3-panel sheet,
Mhm.
middle section with the adjustments. You know, it shows just kind of the various calculations. If you were to adopt the levy at a 1%, there would still be a $443,000 deficit, 2%, 304, 3%, 164, 4%, 25, 348. And of course, if we did a 5%, we'd have a budget surplus. And I guess to me, that's probably not what you're thinking to do. The two sheets attached then show the revenue and expenditure budgets. The bottom section of that panel. I don't have one right now. There's two sheets that show the different effects of the 2% levy increase, 3% levy increase, just to give you an idea of how,
Right.
you know, I come up with the numbers that go on the two resolutions once you adopt what it is that you're going to do.
How much is the 4%? 25,348.
Yes.
This is tentative budget. What's your recommendation?
Right. You know, I think in terms of we have, you know, kind of some unknowns in what's going to happen and how the distribution of our levy is going to go with the increased values within the green acres on ag land and commercial properties weren't increased. You know, I think the lowest amount that you are comfortable with doing and in using other resources to fund that deficit is the way to go. I mean, I wouldn't probably go over 3. That's why I did the 2 and the 3%. Those would probably be the route I would go.
We could always go 4 because this is just a tentative and it's going to go.
But this goes on.
This goes on the
This
notices
goes
that
on
go out to
notices and the-
taxpayers, so.
the Tax statements.
I mean, if it's
and
our intention to try to go lower, then why would we have
Scare the public and
scare
saying
the
that
public?
The finance committee, we thought 3%.
At the most 3%.
So we figured. It's up to you guys.
Levy at 3% is how much?
14,516,540. Then subtracting the CPA, the net levy would be 13,436,484. No,
13,271.
okay, just a minute.
no, 13,
That's the-
436.
That's the requests. So the 3% levy would be 14,351,853, the amount down here.
Okay. So
2% would be 14,212,000.
Right.
Of about 139,000.
Right, 139,338 shows on the bottom is a 1%. Oh,
So
certainly think we go with the 3%, not tie our hands too tight.
Make a motion to go with a 3% for preliminary.
Finance committee. See what they think.
I move to authorize or set a preliminary levy of 3%.
I'll second. Oh, we have a motion and a second. Set a preliminary levy at 3%. questions?
with the hopes that we can reduce it.
Yeah, let's hope to reduce it. Any questions? Okay, all in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed, motion carries. 3%, I guess. is what we're gonna go.
So the budget that you're going to approve is the one at the bottom of the sheet that shows the additional sheet that shows the 3% levy.
Right, this year.
Bottom half is basically what I'll use to put the numbers in the resolution.
So Road and Bridge is gonna use a fund balance of 28,000.
I don't have one of those sheets.
I think I got two. No, I don't.
No, there's two pages.
That's a 2%.
Hang on.
That's the way
Can I
I.
borrow that for just a second?
So the 3% levy increase, it shows the road and bridge, using $500,000 of ARPA. So then the remaining is the 28.6.
So we're gonna use 500,000 of ARPA and then plus dip in 28,600 out of their fund balance.
Right.
That fund balance is at
4.4 million,
4.4 million.
then subtracting the payments for the building this year,
Highway
Those all
shop,
come out.
highway shop.
the highway shop. So I think Brian is putting together information regarding their 5-year capital project plan. It's not like the 4.4 million is just, it was levied for purposes of the highway department. It's a special revenue fund, and that designation should stay with that money, basically.
Yep.
Not to use it for the general fund, not to use it for human services.
Right.
So I think he's taking that number and doing a projection on the projects that are in that 5-year capital plan to see 5 years out where they would end up being. And, letting you know from there.
Well, he wants to come to see us on the 18th of October to talk about long range plans.
Right. And
Saving
that
some
will-
of that 4 million.
right.
Any more questions on the budget? Budget?
I'll move.
3%. That's what we're talking.
This is approved in the budget. You've already approved the levy that's applied there.
We have to,
This is to prove the
we have to
budget.
specify the dollar amount or just.
Well, it will say the dollar amount in that resolution, the information that's on the bottom of that sheet.
Well, I'll second it.
Okay, so we have a motion for a second. To go along with the 3% preliminary budget. All in favor, say aye.
It's not a 3% preliminary budget, it's just the preliminary
Preliminary,
budget
it's
as
the budget.
presented.
No percentage.
No percentage on it.
It's
So
the
we-
budget.
Right.
Just
the
The
budget.
basis of the budget was the 3% increase. The
But
Levy
budget is
increase,
just-
It's the budget.
Right.
All in favor, say aye.
All right.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Preliminary, right?
Now, if we could just get the CPA up a little bit.
Right, I thought we were supposed to see some really big increases
Yeah,
in
we were.
CPA, but
Uh-huh.
that's not consider $25,000.
All right, board updates, no chair, let's do. So we haven't had too much going on outside of the bus ride, and I didn't take that in, but, somebody else can maybe talk on that. We had an interesting zoning meeting yesterday.
What was that, Greg?
We had an interesting zoning meeting yesterday. We had a guy buy a house, well, we've had a couple of these in our company. Bought a house in 1990, and it wasn't in the flood zone in 1990. So now when you went to remodel it and all the statistics and everything shows that it's in the flood zone now because the creek had moved over several feet. So according to our county zoning laws, we were pretty much hand tied. This guy's was furious. So, 'cause he's got $100,000. It's got $100,000 more he wants to put into it. And he told him he had to raise his whole house, everything up 3 feet. According to the geologist of the DNR, okay? So I said, well, the only way we're gonna get this straightened out is we gotta get a hold of that DNR woman. Well, everybody says that's take months, so just out of spirit, we made a call. We got the head lady up in the city.
Wow.
Unbelievable. And she, how did she put it? I found the loophole, she says. So now she signed off and she's gonna let the guy put up a brim. That's all he's gotta do, and then it's gotta be designed. She picked the person to design it. Build the brim, send her a copy of it, pictures. She'll sign off and he can do his house. I mean, what a streak of
Where
luck.
is this?
Down the what, camping down by down, Lightson, where Bill Lightson.
Okay, okay.
It's a little Tom Pocket's house. They know where that is. I mean, just a stroke of luck. We have to catch her.
Wow.
So we asked her, I said, how long will it take to get this pushed through? And she says, well, you get me the stuff today, I'll sign it, send it back.
Wow.
I never seen anything like it. We're all just sitting there and.
Yeah,
wow,
especially the DNR.
especially with the DNR. So, but that worked out pretty good. Maybe we can do the Saugerville deal, something like that too. So, but outside of that, I don't have much more.
I've been on the bus trip and I'll let Bob talk a little more in detail about it. I wasn't as prepared as I should have been for talking about my district, but that's beside the point. And then I had a solid waste meeting, which went real well. No price increases at this point for solid waste for Houston County or Wabasha or any of our joint people. They did a PowerPoint on the plan, a master land use plan. I did bring my books for giving to Greg if he's interested in pursuing this and after the first year, I say college. That was the only other meeting I had, I think. I didn't write them down. And kind of a crazy week.
Well, this time I got a few things to report on. We all went on the TKDA bus tour, so I think we don't need to report too much on that. We were there.
No.
I had a teleconference with MCIT. Now I see they sent us an MCIT packet as far as insurance coverages and what have you. Most of the things on the teleconference were talking about common sense things as far as how to reduce your insurance your liabilities to keep your insurance costs down. Fire, vehicle, liability. So that was an hour and a half of listening to you guys talk about MCIT. I had a Selco meeting in Rochester last Tuesday. That was a committee meeting about combining Selco and cells and the Selco board function. When you're on the Selco, you have to be on a committee. I'm going back and forth to Rochester steady. So I had that meeting. One other thing to report, Selco, the contract with the libraries. The librarians in Houston County have approved the contract. I got to get it over to Sam to have a review of the contract to make sure he's okay with it. Otherwise, they accepted the 2% increase for 3 years and the $6,000 per library for the 3 years out of the ARPA funds. I had a SEEDS meeting, which is a group from Southeast, the 11 counties, Southeast Minnesota, putting together the analysis of Southeast Minnesota, which has to be done in order to apply for federal grants. And then I had a Bluff Country phone conference yesterday, just with regard to the status of Bluff Country. And not much to report on that. It was finances haven't changed much and the board hasn't changed. And it was a relatively short conference call. I appreciated that. So that's all that I have to report.
On this, on the Selco thing, did you guys discuss that combining? What did they
Cells
want,
and so.
cells and all, that's the outcome of that you're on the
That's part of the
committee?
discussion now.
Oh, it's part of the discussion,
It is-
it
it has
hasn't
not
officially been
it has
done yet?
not been officially done.
Okay.
There's good points and bad points. Losing the nonprofit status is one issue. But we're the only one of all the regions in Minnesota, we're the only one that Selco is a nonprofit status. All the other regions in the state don't have the nonprofit status. So.
What's the benefit of that, that they did it fast?
Oh, the benefit of joining,
No, of being nonprofit.
of being nonprofit,
Qualifying for grants.
some of the grants that you can get for nonprofits that are available. That's the biggest benefit, I guess, of being the nonprofit. The issue is Selco sells, whether you join them or not, it's two separate set of books. They both have to file
Yeah, go ahead.
yeah. They both file their own returns as far as the feds and stuff are concerned. So there's not, other than the grants, there's not a whole lot of big difference. Financially, it does not. Selco hasn't gotten a lot of grants on the nonprofit end of it, per se. So they don't know as it makes that big a difference. But you gotta change your bylaws and change all of that business. What have you heard?
No, that's I just, I remember you mentioned it before, that was gonna be discussed.
Yeah.
All I got is, yesterday I was at the watershed, one plan meeting in Preston. Went through some financials and right now they're at $1,024,000 of money left available for projects. Our biggest discussion. Well, let me back up here. Dave Walters was there from River Watershed, talked about a water retention pond they built, and he went through a quick slide version of how the progress went. And turned out pretty like a good project to control water runoff. And it cost $24,000, which didn't seem that much for that type of, it's a pretty big sized pond and overflow. So I suggest to them we should come to a meeting and show that to us, to let everybody see what they're doing out there. So
See the benefits.
yeah. And then the big discussion we had was, and this is a 10-year plan, this river watershed. And we're in the middle, we're just past the 5-year mark, and the Bowser and the legislature wants to have a 5-year review of the progress that we made, or the overview of projects, or, you know. And in our previous meeting, we had discussed that would be handled by the staff. Well, given the fact that the staff at some of these soil and water places are really short-staffed right now, they felt a little overwhelmed, and we're one of the first watersheds developed, so this is the first time anybody's doing anything like this, so they don't know, you know, how much do they need, you know, they need guidance from Bowser on a lot of this stuff, and what does the legislature want? And so they're proposing to hiring a consultant to do this work. And so we agreed to have them put together an RFP and show us this RFP, details of what they're asking, and then we'll approve it and then advertise for it, see what, estimated cost could be $25,000 to $50,000. So it's a little frustrating, we tried to point out that, to kind of keep this a simple overview, it doesn't need to be such a big hurdle for a lot of these watersheds to complete. It'd be better off to put that money towards a project on the ground. And so, and we're the ones that are setting the bar here, so let's try to make this a realistic low bar that, this isn't gonna be a fancy overview. This is something, it'll just show people what they're doing so far. So that was expressed, and I think everybody agreed to that. And they don't want to spend a lot of money on it either, so. And that's where it's left at. So they're gonna work on an RFP and email that to us, and then we'll just, tweak it if we need to and go from there.
$1 million, 1,024,000, whatever you said. That's what's left for the next 5 years.
Yep.
5 years.
No, until 26, I'm sorry,
Okay.
9/26.
So there's no more funding coming in until 26.
Yep.
And so the prior 5 years,
We are over our 5 year. It's every 3 years, the
Okay.
grant project. Yeah, it's not a 10-year grant. It's
Okay.
yeah.
it's 3-year
Yep,
grant.
yep,
This is
yep,
what's left out of the current.
yep,
grant.
But we're like almost year 6 or so for this 10-year
Right.
water plan.
And out of the 3-year grant, there's 2 years left for that
Mhm.
million and whatever it is,
Mhm.
roughly. 2.
Yep.
Got a lot of plans on the books.
Yeah, there is. There is quite a few. They got, they did, the Crook Creek was one of the first big ones they did.
That was a big.
And they have quite a bit more coming down the pike here. A lot of little ones too, and those all add up, so.
And the little ones, does the property owner participate too?
Yes. Yep. Most of the projects are 90-10.
Yeah.
Sometimes depends on the project, it is 75-25. Most of it's 90-10. There's some discussion on that too, that try to make landowners have a little more stake in it and make it 75, but they're trying to get projects out there and get people to do these. And there's all kinds of different ones. There's the Prairie Strip project that they're doing out in Mower County, out that way. So
Search that all.
it's Mower.
Mower.
Power,
I got corrected about that the very first green color meeting I went to.
And I went to a Selco meeting and the guy from Mower County said it's Mower. And he's a commissioner from Mower.
Wow, I had a commissioner correct me right away.
Everybody has a
Like
different
a
slang.
lawnmower.
So I didn't mean to.
Yeah. But they got, livestock waste, stream bank improvements and all that stuff, so.
All right.
We did
That's all.
have, Eric and I did have department head meeting too, but.
Oh, yeah,
I
that's
think
right.
One thing that I did want to bring up in a couple weeks, Brian is going to have, and Tessa, they're putting together the plan for the parking lot. The cost estimates. So that's.
I
something
know
to
just
talk
so
about.
bad.
Yeah.
And another thing that was brought up yesterday at the department head, I listened to that on the way home from
Oh, okay.
this meeting here, so,
Oh, okay.
and I had to take another route to go get some parts, but anyway. Luke found out a discrepancy on some of the land soil classifications, 301s Bs and 301Cs.
Mhm.
He found out we're classified as a lower valued
Right.
land and they actually shouldn't have been.
Mhm.
And it was a little confusion. It was way back, way before he was in the
Mhm.
assessor's office. So it was, instead of 2,700, it should be almost like 7,000 something an acre.
Right.
So we're talking about $7 million swing in values on some of these land soils out
Those
there.
owners aren't gonna be happy.
Yeah.
It wasn't that. he didn't think it
1,500
was-
acres is what he considered, and not everybody, there's gonna be, small parcels here and there, but it's gonna be an adjustment for some of these guys, and a lot of it's around the Black Hammer. Most of it's in Greg's district, so,
Yes.
get
Most of it's in
Thank you.
Yeah, I almost think it's probably when the first CAMA system was set up,
Right.
and it seems like it probably was one appraiser that, is setting those parcels up, so.
Mhm. And the 20, some of this land might have been pasture at one time, so that's how it got started or something, and but Luke caught it, and
He did.
and that was a good catch on his part, because he's trying to make things fair and everything, so he did a good job of catching that and bring it to
Oh,
our
yes.
attention, and he's gonna send out letters to these landowners explaining the situation, so.
Yeah.
It's, it's, as we pointed out, they've been getting a good deal for years here, so I mean,
Mhm.
That don't matter.
I know, but it's, needs to be checked out.
Mhm.
I was surprised it was only 1,500 acres.
Mhm. And he has a sales study, which should be completed by the end of the week.
And he thought we're all pretty decent
Yeah.
shape as far as in some of these
Mhm.
cities and stuff. We're in the range of
Well, we
between
should be.
88 and 102. So
We're getting back up there where we're supposed to be.
Depending on what happens with markets, the sales city could. Things down.
Mhm.
They're pretty strong yet. Up in our
Right.
district, I was looking at some properties and there's a bidding war on a parcel, and it's like a $500,000 parcel. And last I heard,
now farmland hasn't dropped at all either. So
but you're right, that
the housing will probably eventually.
At some point, interest rates.
Interest rates are getting up there. So.
All right.
otherwise, not much on my end. There was no meetings since we met last Tuesday, and I got the bus back in time to go back out, so they were happy.
Good deal. Good job.
Have it done.
One question I want to ask the finance committee. Anybody talked, I see Heidi's online. Anybody talked with Health and Human Services as far as their budget requests and any cuts that are coming from them?
They were all okay this morning with what your proposals and what we offered. They said we're good to go.
So, but were there any cuts on theirs or was it as they
Yeah,
presented?
it was like, was it 70?
It was as they presented.
They haven't had any cuts on theirs.
No. Well,
And yeah,
just what Bob had put out for his opinion.
But I never touched
Yeah,
Health
there
and
wasn't
Human
anything
Services.
for human services there.
Okay.
So that'll be a review for.
That's something we can work on till the end, till the final.
Till December or whatever.
Commissioner, I didn't see a list from you for Public Health and Human Services, but there were adjustments that Carol presented, which was an adjustment to payroll based on some changes with ASME, I believe. And then I think also the impact of the tech replacement and possibility of that being covered by ARPA. Those were kind of the two main things that were included in the numbers that you approved earlier today.
The 31,000 something from ARPA for the tech.
It's still in their budget because we don't know about ARPA allocation. So that is still in their budget and we're recalculating after the AFSCME memorandum of agreement or memorandum of understanding, adjusting the step increase dates. I redid their payroll budgets because we have a lot of new employees. And there originally were budgeted, at a certain step for 2023, but now with their actual date. So their payroll budget ended up decreasing by 14,000 and some dollars. And that was on that sheet that I sent.
Decreasing?
Decreased. Because we were projecting them at a higher step, but since they weren't hired until September,
Because of the
they
new,
won't get it.
because
they
of the
won't
new
get step
hires,
increase
because of the,
until September,
Right.
Yeah.
So.
There's been no conversation as far as any additional concern.
so John, just wanted to ask you on Woodland. What are they asking for increase?
Woodland is looking for a change in their rate structure that would more accurately represent the work they're putting in. We've spent several years working with Woodland to try and show us their costs. I don't know, I'm thinking at least 3 years ago, Olmsted County decided with ABC, which is the parent corporation for Woodland, that they would pay the waiver rate for all of those services. So they brought that to us and I said, look, that's a significant increase over what we currently have allocated. Show me your cost. We've got people that we've referred to Woodland who are Houston County residents. Show me the cost for providing those services. And we kind of struggled getting that between different people who've been there. They now have a new executive director and a new finance person. And Heidi and I met with them earlier this summer and felt that they did a much better job of identifying what their cost is. So it's an increase I can't really say it's an increase of the rates. It's a different rate structure, but it would be an increase to the not to exceed level. But that's driven by the number of people they serve. And so that's kind of a bit of the history with Woodland. We would likely be talking about this more. I built it into the budget because I wanted to be able to have a discussion about that during contract time. So once we bring a contract for Woodland, we can go into that in more specificity.
When will that be?
I'd like to have a contract with them before the end of the year, which would start the beginning of January. So probably sometime in November or December, ideally.
So does Woodland run as a nonprofit?
They do. They're a nonprofit and they're a kind of a subsidiary of Ability Building Center, ABC. And they provide other services in Houston County in La Crescent, but Woodland is, as you know, that's a operation that is intended to provide vocational support services for people with disabilities, and that's in Caledonia. So that contract is separate from other things we do with them. And the county provides a building for Woodland. So there's quite a history of the county's partnership with Woodland prior to, I think, them merging with Ability Building Center some years ago. I don't know the exact dates of that, but I think the Woodland operation predates them being combined under the ABC umbrella.
So, but like the Woodland building budget is separate from the contract that you have with them, correct?
No, this would be the contract I'm
It's all
referring to.
encompassed as one?
It's separate.
No,
It's
it's,
separate.
Proper, separate.
I'm sorry, say again.
Because there was there was an increase in the building part too of 30,000 for improvements, correct?
That I'm not involved in. That would be through Tessa's
Right, that's
budget.
what I mean. That's what I mean.
Yeah, and it is for their
HVAC system.
system, and there's 2 items.
So we provide a building and improvements to them. And plus we give them a contract services.
Right, the contract that I'm referring to is a service contract. That's what pays for their staff and their programming to support those individuals they're serving in Houston County. And with Woodland, it's employment and training services for people, adults with disabilities.
Yeah, I know what.
So what I would be doing, the part of the budget, if I'm understanding your question, the part of the budget that shows an increase is we haven't had an increase with them for several years as we've been trying to hammer this out. It increases the not to exceed and it changes their rate structure. And I feel more comfortable with what they brought forward because I feel like they did a much better job of showing where their cost is. I didn't want Houston County to be on the hook for a whole lot of administrative cost that is really serving people in other counties. And they were able to identify that much clearer. And so that's why we built that into our budget. But just because it's in the budget doesn't mean we have a contract. They're a unique organization in that that's a direct contract between us and them. A lot of our contracts were setting rates for waiver programs or different programs where there's revenue streams for mental health services, things like that. This is a direct service that we're purchasing from Woodland for this specific population.
Any more questions? Thanks, Jeff. Any closing public comment? I guess there isn't any of that. Somebody want to make a motion to adjourn? Anything else? Carol, you have anything? Allison?
So moved. Second.
Motion, a second, adjourn. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Thank you, everybody.